Hey, I'm Ariel. I am a small-scale gardener and homesteader in central Missouri. I'm located in Zone 6A. I'm going to start doing these weekly garden tours as long as I can keep up with them, just to show you what I'm doing in my garden. I do these to act kind of like a journal for myself. I can go back and see what was going on this time last year, but I really like to do them so that I can help teach and inspire you to hopefully pick up some tricks to go garden yourself. So let's take you around my garden. I use these raised beds. I've got now 13 of them. They're made from cedar fence pickets that we cut the dog ears off and cut them down. They work really well. I just wish I had made them like 4x8 if I could have found 8-foot fence pickets. So here I've got some broccoli. This is tricky in Missouri because our temperatures fluctuate so much. But what I'm looking for is for it to form those nice heads. And then it's like a waiting game. You want to see, is it big enough to pick, but did I wait too long and let it go to seed? And it's really a big gamble in Missouri when you're growing it, especially any place that's got a big swing in temperatures. Like right now, it's like 70 degrees here. It could be 90 degrees tomorrow. And those big shifts in temperature tend to send broccoli to seed. And then you can't harvest it because it's got flowers. Each of those little buds there will form a flower that will produce seeds. So this is like what you eat when you get at the grocery store. But once it goes to seed, you know, you're not gonna want to eat it. So I'm kind of waging my bets here to see how big I can let those get before they go to seed. So this bed here, all my cabbage. They look amazing, super happy, super healthy. I've been watching really closely. I've had years where my entire bed has been destroyed by cabbage worms. So this year I'm doing two things. I am covering these with a floating row cover. It's like a breathable, lightweight fabric, so they can still get sunlight, they can still get water, but there's moths that come in and land on the leaves. They lay their eggs, and then the eggs turn into the caterpillars. So by covering them with the fabric, I'm hoping that I just don't have any caterpillars get on these. So as soon as I'm done shooting my tour here, I'm gonna cover them back up. The other thing I'm doing is spraying with BT. It is an organic pesticide that takes care of things like cabbage worms, hornworms, any kind of like a caterpillar type pest. And you spray it on the leaves, and then when they eat the leaves, they die. So I'm doing kind of double duty there, using those two steps to hopefully make sure I don't get any cabbage worms on these beautiful cabbages. When you're growing cabbage, you're kind of looking like these outside leaves, as pretty as they are, we won't eat them. But I'm waiting for these to form in the middle. They'll form a really tight ball, and that's what you're gonna eat. So next up here, I've got some beets. These are the early red cylinder beet. I'll look up exactly what kind of seed they were. But I'm intentionally letting this go to seed. Those little pods there are going to be seeds. I want to seed save from this. They're really good. And so if I was going to eat this, I would have picked it when the plant looked a little bit more like that. But I let it stay in the ground and get warm, and then it's going to put up this seed stalk that then I'll be able to save all of the little seeds from that beet, and then I don't have to buy more seeds for that next year. These are Tom Thumb peas. I made this whole big trellis thing. I don't think they're gonna get too much taller. It's a miniature pea variety, but I'm gonna come out and we're gonna start picking some peas this week. I did also over here, I had some gaps. There's some of my sunglasses. I had some gaps in my peas this year, so I'm adding some more, and I'm really trying to give these peas time to produce before I pull them to put some summer stuff in its place, which it's driving me a little bit crazy, but I'm hoping I'll have some good harvests from these peas yet to make it worth it. Right next to the peas, I did go ahead and I put in some Hale's Best cantaloupe. I put 2 plants at the base of this wire trellis. This is made from rebar mesh that I cut in half, and then I use some zip ties along the top to hold it together, and it works really well. It's got pokey ends on one side that I can use to push down in the ground. And what will happen is these melon plants will start to form a vine and then work their way up, and then the melons will hang underneath. I will have to go through and use some supports just to make sure that they don't fall off the vine, but I don't typically have too big of an issue with a smaller melon like a cantaloupe or like a sugar baby watermelon that's a smaller variety. You can do that same way too. This bed over here is some Lincoln peas. I think that pea flowers are so pretty. And it's also really cool to me how as it's getting taller, it puts out this kind of folded little growth that will expand into this. They start out, their leaves are folded in half, and then they just open up to the sun, and these little tendrils will grab on, they'll get curly, and they'll grab onto other peas. I plant my peas close together because they grow up each other, but they'll grab on, and I'm hoping to see them fill up a little bit more of this teepee here. But I am getting some peas on these now in the middle to make the most of my space and be ready to succession plant. I threw a pumpkin seed in the middle of each of these teepees over here because I know how long it takes to get stuff going from seed. And so I'm hoping that by the time these peas are done, that the pumpkin seeds will have started and I'll be able to pull the pea plants and pumpkins will just kind of fill in its place. Now I did 2 pumpkin seeds in a 3x6 bed, so keep that in mind. Do not plant a lot of pumpkins unless you have the space for them. In the middle here, I have got some cilantro. I left this, I should be able to get at least one more harvest out of it. And I froze everything I didn't use, which is a super cool tip. I didn't know that you could freeze cilantro. So this is my favorite part of my garden right now. I tried something new with my tomatoes and my onions. I did these T-post trellises with the cattle panels. I cut them down. I've got a whole tutorial on how to do it. And I put my tomato plants, I put 4 on each side in a 6-foot bed. And then I put onions. I had planted these onions from sets earlier this year. Just all different kinds of onions. I literally just grabbed scoops from a bulk store of onion sets. And so it's kind of a rainbow of onions that'll come up in the middle. And I left this gap that's about a 1-foot gap in between them for airflow. And then as these guys get bigger, I'm gonna trellis them. I'm gonna tie them up to the cattle panels to give them support. So I'm hoping it goes well. This is my first year doing it this way. I will tell you, last year I used bamboo stakes and my tomatoes got every bit of 6 foot tall. I'm 5 foot tall, I'm 5'4", and they were above my head. And I came home one day to find multiple bamboo stakes had snapped, and that was horrible. It broke my heart because I had a 6 foot tall plant with all these fruit that was not ripe yet. It gets heavy, that I had to figure out what to do with, how to re-trellis them, how to make them secure so I could get them through to harvest. And the plants just were never the same. So this year I said, not doing it again. We're gonna make these extra secure, and I'm so excited to start getting plants up high enough that I'll be able to start trellising on here. I'm 100% that girl who wants all the varieties, so I don't have many duplicates. I've got a striped Roma, early Cascade, and I've got just a regular Roma and a mortgage lifter tomato. Those ones are great to set a lot of like pretty good sized fruit pretty quickly. Let's move on down here. We've got watermelon beefsteak. This plant, I questioned putting it in. I still have some extras that I could swap it out for another kind, but I wanted to try this to see how I liked it. This guy here is an Amish paste tomato. This year in my garden, I swapped all of my San Marzano tomatoes. I used to grow those. I swapped them for Amish paste. my San Marzanos just have not been doing well, and the Amish paste have been amazing. A good tomato for making sauce, for having something like a thicker tomato for salsas. And so I do a lot of canning with my tomatoes, so I wanted something that would be really good for paste tomatoes. And these ones just put on a bigger fruit and they put on more fruit. I feel like the plants themselves were a lot hardier as well. And so here already, these little guys are what would turn into flowers. So super excited about that. Moving on, this one had some rain, so I've got some splashback. A vintage wine tomato. That makes a really pretty variegated tomato. And this one is a Consueloto Genovese, and I'm saying that horribly wrong, but kind of a goofy looking tomato. I just thought they were cool. A very like bumpy tomato. So I'll show you what that looks like once we get some fruit. This backside I've got a red Brandywine, a black Krim. Those put on a really pretty dark purple tomato. Really good producers and a hardy plant. Got a Brandywine pink. The shape of the leaves on Brandywine, a lot of times they're called potato leaf tomatoes. It's a different shape. Like this is that black Krim, whereas the Brandywines, the leaves look like that. And I think it's cool that each kind of got their own leaf shape. Just another Roma there, but a very happy looking Roma. And moving over here, we have got a Cherokee purple, another really good dark beefsteak tomato, a really pretty purple reddish color. I love the flavor on these. Those put on that nice kind of fat yellow tomato, really good flavor. I was excited to try Tigerella. These plants, like, look at just how thick that stem is already. Like, really healthy plant. Oh, we already got a little fruit on there. Look at that, a tomato baby. So this puts on, again, like a kind of variegated striped tomato. I was wanting like the variegated pretty ones this year. So that's the Tigerella. I'm really anxious to see the fruit. And then this one is another Brandywine pink. Again, that potato leaf tomato. So in the middle, we've got lots of onions coming up. Those were planted from sets in, I want to say early March. They're getting ready to get a haircut. I'm going to cut off a lot of that greenery just so that onions can focus on really forming a good bulb and not supporting as much on the top. I have got this bed of these Ozark Beauty strawberries, just happy plants. I've started picking some, but they are just loaded with berries. I picked this morning and none of these were red this morning. They're ripening so quick, so I've got to pick these about every day right now just to make sure that I get to pick them and something else does not. This bed here, I've got some spaghetti squash that's going to climb up that nice tall trellis there. And then I put some flowers on the end. I wanted to encourage lots and lots of pollinators in my garden. I get a lot of bees anyways, but I just want to encourage that. So I have got some zinnias, some marigolds, some poppies, some couple different kinds of heirloom poppies in there. I also planted some sage in there too. Here I've got some green beans. I started these from seed and I had some where they didn't come in. There, one's kind of starting to come in and some didn't do as well. These that were from seeds I saved myself, and so today I planted more just to fill that in. I've got some cucumber plants. Again, a lot of my squash and vining plants I grow on these A-frame trellises. So these are the Space Master 80 cucumber from M.I. Gardner. And then I've got some kale over here. This is dinosaur kale. I haven't grown this kind before. I'm gonna see how it does here. It may not be something I pick this summer. I may just wait and pick it like in the fall or next year, really early spring. This bed of bare root strawberries, my chickens got out. I had it all planted perfectly and they got out and pulled a lot of the plants and they didn't make it when I replanted them. So just to not waste this space, I went ahead and filled in with some different peppers. These I think are a purple bell pepper, just so I wouldn't waste the space. If you don't plant something, nature will plant something for you. So I put in just some different things that'll go along with these bare root strawberries. And the goal is next year, these will have put off enough runners that I will then replant it with my own plants that these guys put out as runners. I do my cherry tomatoes in these buckets, planted them way at the bottom, and so the roots kind of go all the way up there. I'll tell you, when you do them this way, the fruit's gonna hang down here. Here we've already got some fruit. Those little buds there will be fruit. You've got to water pretty often on these. We've had a lot of rain lately, but it is hard to get moisture to hold on in these buckets. So I do water pretty often, and I do have some holes drilled in the bottom for drainage so that the plants don't stay too damp. But usually in Missouri, I have the opposite problem. These are a blueberry tomato. I broke that vine off, but other than that, it's looking good. Over here, I've got some potatoes. These are gonna be potato flowers, which just means the plants are doing good down there. We'll see how they do. It's been a really damp spring, but I've covered these up once already. I'm probably gonna cover one more time. This bed here has got some garlic, and I put that in from sets in November, from garlic cloves in November. And then these are some onions I put in from seed, along with some elephant garlic I put in last year in November as well, and that just looks amazing. It's doing super good. I had some weird spaces again, so I just threw some like bush style green bean plants in there. I don't want to waste the space. I only have so much of it. So I've got some bean plants coming up, and hopefully I'll just pick from those while I wait on the rest of this bed. Come over here, I've got some lovely blueberries that I grow in containers so I can help control that soil. They like it really acidic, so I want to make sure that I give them what they need. And this guy looks just very happy. This guy, happy, not quite as happy. This one I just potted this year. It needs a good pot up next year, but for this year it's good. So last thing I'm going to do is show you my salad bed here. This is all different kinds of loose leaf lettuce seeds. I was having trouble, my chickens were getting out. They kept picking clean all of the seedlings as they came up, so I just kept adding seeds, and now the bed is very full. So I'm going to close today just by cutting some salad for lunches the next couple of days. I hope that you've enjoyed my tour here. I would really love it if you subscribe to my channel. You can also find me on TikTok, and I have a free gardening group called the Grace Roots Gardening Community. I'll put the link down below, and I'd love to have you join me there. Ask any questions, feel free to give me feedback. If you have any tips for me or things that would help other gardeners too, I want that to be a place of community. So thank you so much for joining me today.